Hello and welcome everybody to Heathen Talk. I'll be your only host tonight, Thorin, as usual. Lauren and Josh taking the night off tonight while we do a military Heathens episode. Joining me tonight are Chris Jacheo of Tier 1 Viking Radio podcast. We've got Chuck Hudson of Raven Radio fame, and we've got Josh Heath back again from Open Halls. So thanks all for joining us. I'll say a little bit more about them in a minute. I just wanted to remind you all that you should come see us on our various social media platforms. Yes, for all you longtime listeners, go ahead and get a chuckle out of the fact that I have to deal with all of this tonight. You can find us on Twitter at Heathen Talk. Mark loves it when you follow our Instagram at, the Twitter is at Heathen Talk, Heathen_talk. See, this is why I don't do this. Our Instagram is instagram.com/Heathen Talk. Of course, there's our usual Facebook page, Heathen Talk Podcast, and you can always encourage to go to our actual .com, which is just heathentalk.com. I think I got all of that out. I would ask, usually this is the part where I say, did I miss anything, but there's nobody here that can tell me.
That sounds good to me.
While we're at the whole social media thing, I also wanted to just remind everybody that the Heathen Talk podcast has become the Heathen Talk Network. We have just launched a new show that airs on Monday mornings called The Java Mall, hosted by Dr. Ben Wagner. He is essentially breaking down the verses of the Havamal one by one in their original language, explaining the translations and from that original language into English and what it all means. And it gets posted up just in time for you to enjoy it with your first cup of coffee on Monday mornings. The first episode is up. Go take a listen to it. It was kind of awesome. And it's a short little 10-minute episode. Definitely worth listening to. So I'm going to go back once again to more properly introduce our guests. Joining us, as I mentioned first, we've got Chris Jacheo of Tier 1 Viking Radio. He's been Heathen for about 20 years, served in the U.S. Army as an infantryman in the early 90s. He deployed to the Balkans during Operation Able Sentry with the UN Protection Force. He stays active in the veteran community, is a founding member of Odin's Operators, which has been a good network for Heathen military and veterans who have needed help. Next on the list, we've got Chuck Hudson of Raven Radio, who I'm pretty sure anybody who's been listening, or at least trying to listen to Heathen podcasts since podcasting became a thing, knows about Raven Radio. But what you may not know is Chuck is also a retired U.S. Army combat medic and NCO, emergency medicine instructor. He's also a wilderness survival instructor, firearm instructor. He's a prepper, a scoutmaster, and a dad. As I mentioned, he's one of the founders of Raven Radio. He's also the founder of Mountain Haven Kindred, the largest kindred in New Mexico. Finally, we've got Josh Heath, which anybody who listens to our show very often has heard from before, but I'll tell you about him again. He's the co-director of the Open Halls Project, served in the Army for about 7 years, 5.5 of those on active duty. He's been a Heathen himself for about 20 years, and he currently lives in the D.C. area. He just completed his master's degree in international peace and conflict resolution at American University, and he's, I just found this out today, even though in theory he told us about it last time he was on. He's written a children's book called Old Dawn. It's a Heathen children's book. And if you want to find it, you can find it either just by searching for it on Amazon, or you can find it on the books list that we have linked on our page at heathentalk.com. So, again, thank you everybody for joining us.
Hey, no problem.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so we've got a few traditions of our own on Heathen Talk, and the first one is that we have a weekly toast, and that toast is always for somebody who's going out there and doing something good, doing something active, doing something important for the heathen world. And I really kind of was trying to think this week about who I could toast that is doing that and would also be appropriate for this episode. And it just occurred to me that the most appropriate thing for this episode is our active duty members of the military and our veterans. Because while they're not all heathens, and they're not necessarily doing what they're doing for heathenry, they're definitely making it possible for us to live in a country where we don't have to worry about whether or not we're even able to be heathens. So for going out there and protecting our freedom to do what we're doing here tonight, to all of our active duty and veterans.
We're here.
And that brings us on to another tradition, as we tell everybody about what we're drinking. And believe it or not, this was at the demand of our audience. So I'll start, since I'm the host. And tonight, I usually would be showing the webcam a label, but I don't have a label to show because this is a homebrew. This was made by one of the two people that I'm teaching to brew, which makes me incredibly proud of it because it's fucking delicious. Oh, speaking of fucks, we're going to have more than one tonight, folks. We decided that there's absolutely no way you're getting four veterans into an hour and a half worth of conversation and holding it just to one, so consider this your content advisory. It'll be appropriately labeled when we upload this to iTunes, and if you have an issue with foul language, this might be an episode to skip.
Oh, hell no.
But as I was saying, this was the second recipe ever written by this particular student. It's a barley wine. It's spent several months in a white oak cask, and it's just fucking amazing, and I cannot say enough how proud I am of this beer, even though I didn't have a damn thing to do with it. So, Chris, why don't you tell us what you're drinking tonight?
Well, I wasn't really privy to the whole toast thing, but I did happen to have a beverage near me. It's a branched chain amino acids, actually. Grape. So it's a work night, and I'm in training, so that's all we're going to get out of it.
That's fair enough. There's always at least one dry person on Heathen Talk. Usually it's Lauren.
No, I wouldn't go as far as to say I'm dry, but tonight I am.
Yeah, I'm drinking DC, Laurel, Maryland's finest distilled water. So keeping it nice and clear for today as well.
If I lived near DC, I'd be drinking distilled water too. I wouldn't trust all the bullshit in the groundwater.
Oh, hell no, not in D.C.
Okay,
my turn. Beefeater Gin and tonic with a twist of lime.
There you go.
That's almost classy.
No, it's on sale.
All right, so for those of you playing the game at home, tonight's topic is military heathenry, and yes, that sounds really broad. That's because it's really broad. We're not going to try to limit this to any particular narrow aspect of the intersection between heathenry and the military. As we've done in the past with episodes, with Josh here when we had episodes about heathen recognition and other things like that. We just really want to kind of get across to anything we happen to touch on. We've got no topics written down. We've got nowhere to start from, so we're just going to wing it and see where it goes. I don't think we're going to have much of a problem with that. We're all trained to do that.
Absolutely. Rise, adapt, overcome. Wait, that's a freaking jarheads. Never mind. I don't know. I'll start off on this thing here. Back there's about 1984, 85. We tried to get a little circle, because there was not very many kindreds around. There wasn't really much around back then on Fort Benning. And let me tell you, I loved President Reagan. I voted for him. I supported him, except for his goddamn moral majority made the military a miserable place not to be a Christian in. It was mandatory church time, Sunday mornings, unless you were deployed out in, BFE. Trying to do anything outside of the big two, and that's Protestants and Catholicism. That's all the military recognized back then. It was tough. We got basically ordered no non-Christian meetings allowed on Fort Benning. But that was 1985, and I look today what Josh has done. It's I wish we could have done that 30 years ago.
I'll tell you, 92, when I went in 92, 93, it probably loosened up a little bit, but I can remember being in basic, and on Sunday when you had your downtime was strongly influenced going to church. My first lieutenant in my unit was a devout Christian. He pressed it hard. My dog tags at that point said no religious preference, and it didn't matter. As far as he was concerned, everybody was Christian. But it definitely loosened up some, but there was still feeling the effects in the early 90s.
What did you do basic at?
Benning.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The funny thing is, the three of us are almost like three different eras of the Army, because I went in 2006, and I'll tell you, Sunday morning was the only time that you could just fuck off and not have a drill sergeant down your throat for fucking off.
Yeah, fucking first. I mean, it's mine was a Vietnam era, because I went to basic in '80, and we still had the Vietnam era influence. And realistically, Carter was president when I was in basic. By the time I got through basic, Reagan was president and all that, but my first year was basically, we were still heavily influenced by the Carter administration, and then once Reagan came in, I mean, it was like the moral majority crawled out of the fucking woodwork. I mean, it's like moral majority and Pogs, which was worse.
I think my experience is a lot closer to Josh's. I went in 2001. No, it wasn't a patriotic reaction. I went in 2-3 months before 9/11, so I can't accept that particular reasoning. But I was right there with Josh. I mean, maybe it was a Navy thing, but I don't know if there was a single person in boot camp or in A school that I ever remember attending a religious service on Sunday. Everybody just used that as their one day to sit back and go, well, fuck, they're leaving us alone for about 6 hours.
Awesome. I wouldn't say that there were not people going to church. I think like a good 60% of my platoon went somewhere, but it was just an excuse to get the fuck away.
Six store. Woo.
And at one point, I even actually asked, like, hey, are there any other pagans, heathens, Buddhists? I was like, I don't give a fuck. Are you not Christian? And I actually got approval to go through my whole company asking people if they were interested in starting something. And I had like one Wiccan and one Buddhist and one other random person that was like, yeah, maybe, and then it never got off the ground because they were lazy and were like, I'd rather sit on my ass on a Sunday morning. And I'm like, I don't really disagree with you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that my time in, I was in from 01 through 06. I can't say that my time in was completely without issues about religion. I do know I had one particular friend that those issues seemed to gravitate towards him. Early on, I can remember him getting in trouble. In the Navy, you're allowed to wear, one necklace with a small pendant, 1 inch by 1 inch, I think it was, and he had a hammer that he wore, and it slipped out of his shirt one day while he was working, and he started to get a ration of shit from a lieutenant about how he's not allowed to be wearing jewelry, and he tried to calmly explain to his lieutenant, this is a religious pendant and blah blah blah. And when the lieutenant asked him about it, he told him, about heathenry, and was politely informed that that's not a real religion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Been there, done that one. Got a bunch of T-shirts and an Article 15.
This is the same guy. This is the same guy that ended up in TPU, and we sent him copies of the Havamal and replacement hammers 3 times, and all 3 times they were confiscated and destroyed because they didn't count as religious items.
Hey, do you mind if we deviate just one little thing really quick? I want to just do a hail to SEAL Charles Keating. He's the SEAL that died yesterday.
Yeah.
Fighting Iris.
Yeah.
Halls welcome you, and the family and ancestors have food and drink waiting for you. Kid was from Arizona.
I saw that this morning.
I didn't hear about it, but it's a worthy diversion.
Yeah, it's a very highly publicized, actually, on social media right away, and it's been going on all day.
Yeah. He was related to someone.
He was Charles Keating the second was the guy who did the S&L scandal, the savings and loan scandal, in what was the 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, I knew it was something.
He actually gave up. He did something similar like Pat Tillman. He gave up a very positive, a career as a long distance runner, and he to join the military and go in the Navy and go SEALs. So that's pretty honorable right there.
Yeah, it sounds an awful lot like he was trying to resurrect his family's reputation there.
Yep, well, he did. He sure as hell did.
Absolutely.
So,
That's how you change your luck.
It's looking at pretty cool here, looking at the different generations of military service here from, 4 different presidents?
Yeah.
And
Clinton's in office right now, yeah.
Yeah, so we had Clinton, we had a couple
5, maybe 5 or 6
Bush,
presidents.
Bush 1, Bush 2, and Obama.
Yeah.
You guys, I was with Carter and Reagan and Bush the first, and it's funny how a lot of the religious influences of the president were pushed onto the military. Under Carter, yeah, he was, he was a devout Southern Baptist and all that, but being a liberal like he was, it wasn't really as publicized. President Reagan, on the other hand, when he came in, 81, was pretty slack. That was, it was pretty slack, nothing bad. By 1982, though, I mean, we had the moral majority in full force. We had Christianity; it was mandatory. I mean, even when I was in basic, services were mandatory. You had 3 choices. You had Catholic, you had Protestant, you had a Jewish a rabbi that you got to load a bus and go off post for. A few of us did that one just to get our tail off a polk.
Right.
But now the work that Josh has done with this over what has it been now? Almost 7, 8 years now. You've done this, or yeah, it's longer than that, right?
Jesus, we started in 2009, so 7 years. Yeah.
7 years.
Ooh, damn.
Busting ass, and we have a lot of your influences here on the 3 Air Force bases, especially, believe it or not so much Kirtland, which is in the center of 3 of the biggest kindreds in New Mexico, but Cannon, which is way down in eastern New Mexico, and Holloman, which is down in South Central. And actually, from your work, you've got a couple of kindreds started in Alamogordo, New Mexico.
Nice.
They keep in contact with me and all that, but the main reason they started was they started this family groups that grew into small kindreds, but the biggest reason was to serve the heathens that were stationed at Holloman. And who was the biggest group of heathens they had? The Germans that were stationed at Holloman.
Right.
It was great. We've gone to a couple of those bloats, and from what you've done in the last 7 years, so we still haven't got DOA to get off their dead asses.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. And now fucking DOD.
I want to fucking fire you up on that one. So yeah, I recognized you. I made you feel good. Now, what the fuck with DOA? But seriously, I know where you're at on that. That is clusterfuck of biblical proportions.
Pretty much.
Stack of papers.
Now if we could just get DOD to get off their asses and stop this whole, we're working on this new fucking system. Okay, you've been working on this new fucking system for what, 4 years, 5 years now? Bullshit.
Well,
I don't believe it.
It ought to be just about time for preliminary rough draft review then.
Right, exactly.
You need to find a committee to feed a committee.
Right.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah, I do with politics. I mean, especially when my last, let's say, from Desert Storm 1 to about 95 when I retired, I made 7. And oh my gosh, politics sucked. And boy, if you were not, let me tell you one thing, being an E7 and being heathen sucked. I mean, it was okay as a E4, E5 and all that, E1s. I came in as a 3 though. But you hit 7, it's a whole different world, and oh my gosh, they want you to be Mr. Perfect. You're a heathen. Do we have to have a word about? Well, we didn't call it back then. We didn't call it also true, but.
That was the question I was wondering. I remember McNallen talking about it when he was in the military.
In the 60s, yeah.
Yeah, he just called it Norse, is what he had on his dog tag. Wondering what you were referring it to as.
We called it the same thing. We just called it Norse or Norse paganism, I think, but it wouldn't fit in a dog tag. And the term foreign Sieth was coming around back then. It was right after, what was his fucking name? Blew up his shit. Oh, Staretrue. Staretrue started making his rounds around the military bases, and we had to do something different. He didn't call it back then in the 90s because he was just buck private, but still. But yeah, we just called it Norse, but most of the time, most of us just had NA. Or what was it? NRP, no religious
No
preference.
religious preference. That's what I had. And to be honest, I didn't find heathenry. I didn't understand what heathenry was or that it existed until after I got out of the military. So at that point, I was still what I call searching. I guess characteristically, I was a Christian. Because I didn't know what else there was, but I knew it wasn't working for me. And the ironic thing is that I got sent to Berlin, Germany. And so I always say that if I knew then what I know now, I would have taken a lot more advantage of things other than women and beer while I was there, and learned a whole hell of a lot more because the land of my ancestors, right at my feet. So
there were some cool places, man. Some cool heathen places in Germany. I'll tell you. Like when my wife and I started reading like some local folk tales. And going to the places in the folktales and saying, okay, like, how does this place actually like fit into the folktale? It was amazing, dude. We went to a place that created an entire like aspect of our heathen worship that we hadn't been connected to before at the Frau Halle Teich, which is like a swampy kind of like bog area that has this humongous statue of Frau Halle in the middle of it, and it has been worshipped at since Roman times. And you go there, and the statue's newer, but you still go there, and you feel all that energy, and you're like, holy shit. Like, this is so fucking awe-inspiring. This is the shit that people look for all the time. They're looking for this type of, epiphany, hierophany, whatever the exact term you're searching for is for it. You're there, and you feel it, and you're like, okay, this was something. And that's all I'm going to say. So go to Germany. I will tell you where to go, like at any time, because it's fucking worth it.
Yeah, hindsight's definitely 20/20. I mean, I could think back now to things that even when I went in the field, in Hohenfels and wild flicking, just the areas and the land and everything. There's so much more.
Fucking, you were at wild fucking?
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Balls deep in some cold ass snow too.
God, wild fucking and Hornfelds and Graf. Fuck them places.
Oh, yeah, Grafenwehr. Oh man.
Jumping
in Bamberg, man.
Stop it.
See, I knew we'd get to this point where I'd start to feel that slight bit of inadequacy for never having deployed.
This was deployment. This was fucking stationed there.
Right. This is this is a beer journey. I'm on vacation drinking beer and like
I was
schnitzel.
deployed there in Germany and the medic and Ciencio. I didn't have to play at the grunts all the time.
Well, I had one set of orders given to me for outside of the CONUS, and it was for Reykjavik.
Oh,
Hey, that's a cool spot, dude.
I would love to have gone to. I mean,
That's where I learned more about heathenry than I did from my father. Because, well, all we had back then was fucking bellows and what the hell, a couple of other
yeah, I mean,
columns.
it would have been fun. I've heard nothing but great things about being stationed in Reykjavik. And about 2 months out, they decided they were downsizing Reykjavik, and my orders got pulled, and I got sent to No Fuck, Virginia.
Ugh.
Yeah. Now, see, my biggest epiphany about heathenry, except, growing up in New Mexico, let me tell you one thing. The Catholics in northern New Mexico are more pagan than the pagans.
That's kind of everything.
I mean, you have what we call bathtub saints. And each freaking town has a patron saint. I mean, you got a patron saint to the harvest. You got a patron saint to Mora, New Mexico, Rainsville, New Mexico, Viking, New Mexico. But where I learned it was we got laid over in Reykjavik and then they decided, you know what? We're just going to have to wait for a new airplane to come in because this C-130 is just not going to make it across the ocean to Scotland. So we spent like 4 days in Reykjavik, and I just went ahead and paid some money and just took one of the tours. And I went to this one place called Skogafoss. It's just a plain old waterfall, and it's one of those places there that, I was talking, we're talking with some of the old folks over there, and I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this hammer that I got right now is one my dad made for me back, I don't know, like 1974, 75. He copied it out of a book and carved it in the soapstone and cast it. And every time it wears out, I just heat up some 30-06 brass or whatever, melt some brass, and just do a sand cast of it. But that place, and then that's talking to some of the, not the young folks my age, but talking to the older folks over there. They were the cool people. It's like in Germany. You guys spent in Germany talking to the old Nazis. Seriously. Sit in the guest house and talk to these guys in their 60s and 70s, back in the 80s or whatever. And, these guys, they were German soldiers. But talking to these old people, it's like, wow, it's still fucking alive. But then, you try to be a stupid little E5 at the time and say, guess what? Hey, we can do this at the unit like that. And report to the operations sergeant for extra duty.
So now we are actually finally starting to get some questions in from the audience, and I've got this one, and I'm going to start with you, Chuck.
Uh-oh.
We'll go from the oldest to the youngest on this one, I think. Give us a little picture about how things have changed. The question is, how did being a heathen affect your day-to-day life when you were in the military?
Realistically, not very much, because the Army of the 70s and 80s was a different worldview. You were still under the stigma of Vietnam. And we just, being heathen in there, it was just like, hey, fuck you guys. I'm better. I'm no more. And it just hell, I don't know how to put it. It was just, it didn't really change my day-to-day life just because I was a damn good soldier. I'd put it that way. Being heathen was, all it was just I had a slightly different worldview of the way everybody would, you'd have take a kneel, and you'd, oh, Heavenly Father, please allow us not to kill some dumbass private with a grenade during this FTX type of shit. And, I'd be sitting on the other side there and said, guys, please save me from these motherfuckers. It was I just, you played two worlds. I played the Army world of being, Sergeant Hudson, and I started out, my squad or my platoon. And then I had the world of just me, the heathen, that just lived the way my father taught me. That's about the difference. And they intermeshed pretty good because, and I'm not going to go into this warrior spirit bullshit that you see on Google Plus and all that with all these, yes, you got to be a Viking, you got to grow your hair long, your beard long, carry a spear, and not use toilet paper. No, my father just taught me, he said, you are going to be different from everybody else just because of the fact is that you do not believe in one God. You have these he give you the list of them, and you also have a greater strength because of not so much of your God supporting you, because of your family, both alive and dead, are always with you. And I just took that with me, and that's what kept me going. A lot of times when shit got deep, or believe it or not, shit got boring, I always knew who had my back. Not only did my guys in my squad have my back, but my dead family did. All right.
So, if nothing else, you've sparked a conversation about. Okay, we got no come from somebody.
I don't hear it. Well, normally I do.
Well, I don't hear it anymore, so fair enough.
All right.
We'll edit that out. So, if nothing else, you've sparked off a discussion in the IRC about differing methods of casting.
Casting? Well, you got open-faced reel, you got closed-faced reel.
I think the debate's going on pretty much between sand and lost wax. Because our audience is nothing if not consistent. Thanks, guys.
I need to find that chat room. There we go.
All right, so, Chris, you're the next one in age on this one. How about you?
Well, like I said, I didn't find heathenry until I actually got out of the military, but I can still kind of relate because as of now I work for a defense contractor, and they're similar. I work for the Navy. We build combat ships for the Navy, and I still have to present myself in a specific way, and I don't do compromise very well. I never have. I probably never will. And I run into situations like the department I'm in. They like to have parties, on the holidays, Thanksgiving, and during their Christmas time and whatnot. And I got to the point now where I don't involve myself because they don't compromise with anyone else. They go straight to the Christian prayers before meals and stuff like that. They made the mistake one year of well, it wasn't really a mistake. Somebody told our department head that I was an ordained minister, which was true. I got the little certificate from the Universal Ministries to visit a brother that was locked up, and I went through everything, and he's like, well, our normal guy, that says the prayer, he took vacation, would you say it? And I said, sure, I'll say the prayer. So, and I was really, considerate. I wrote up, something that, I made sure that anytime I said gods, it was plural, and I included some stuff about ancestors. And I don't remember exactly what it was, but, there were a couple people that were like, what did he just say? Was that witchcraft or something? And then after that, it was you could tell there was definitely a distance when that subject came up. And I don't hide it from anybody. I either wear my hammer, my Volknot, or people ask me what my tattoos mean, and I don't hide that from anyone. But there's definitely, and it also comes from the fact that I live in Alabama. I'm right smack in the middle of the Bible Belt. There's actually a good bit of heathens here, but we're still heavily outnumbered. And the acceptance of heathenry, it's not so much that it's like they're defiant against it; they're just ignorant. So it's something that I deal with on a basis from here and there. Nothing regular, but that's about as much experience as I've had with it. I'll pass.
Well, now there's that echo again.
Yes, I hear it too now.
Huh. I wonder where that's coming from. Is anybody playing through their speakers?
Nope, I'm on headphones.
All right, well, we'll try really hard to ignore it when it pops up because it seems like it went away again. We'll just edit all that crap out when we actually...
Goddamn Windows guys is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it's the Windows guys.
It might be guys. I've got speakers running here. I don't have headphones on.
You know what happens sometimes. Anyways, so, for my part, I had a few things here and there. I don't think it ever really affected my day-to-day life. I mean, most of my people I served with at my various duty stations at some point in time figured it out, either because they saw me, wearing a hammer or something like that in public, or because conversationally something came up where I said something weird enough for somebody to ask a question. Nobody ever really gave me any grief over it. Mostly it was just, a few little punctuated incidences like the ones I mentioned with my friend earlier, both with his lieutenant and when he went to TPU. I know I've got a tattoo on my arm right now that I had actually planned on getting when I was still active duty and was just told unequivocally without a doubt I was not allowed to get that tattoo because it had runes in it, and runes were still considered hate symbols. They were still associated with the neo-Nazi movement in the military. I don't know if that's still how it is today, but I mean...
I got these when I was on active duty, so no.
All right, so I mean things have changed a little bit then. I mean there has been some change between my generation and yours. I know mine, I was being told that in 2006 when I was stationed in Virginia, and I mean I can't even chalk it up to just my senior enlisted advisor having bad information either. We got we had a safety stand down briefing that involved that kind of stuff, and they specifically just straight up said, these are amongst the prohibited things for tattoos and jewelry and whatnot. But I mean, overall, it didn't affect me a whole hell of a lot. I met a few heathens here and there. Probably a lot of the stuff that I've gotten into that's really led me from being, I don't really know what this is doing, but it kind of feels right type of heathen I was way back in the beginning to, actually kind of understanding things I can owe to the fact that I was able to be openly heathen in the Navy and met a lot of people, mostly when I was stationed up in Whidbey Island here in Washington. So, I mean, the effects were positive and negative both for me. Now, I got to imagine, Josh, that there has to have at least been some effect for you. Otherwise, I can't see how you would have been inspired to jump into the clusterfuck that you've involved yourself in for the last 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. Effect is an interesting word for me because I went I've been a heathen for almost 10 years before I went in the military. You know, I became a heathen really young. So I'm young in retrospect with all you guys, but I was very young when I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Um, so for me, it was already just like my day-to-day life. Sure, I had, right before going in, I had found out some true lore, and I had figured out that Reconstruction was a thing, but I was still kind of like learning about that process and learning about how that was going to affect my actual heathenry, like day to day. But went into the military knowing that this is going to be something that's important to me. You know, I went in. I brought a copy of the Havamal with me to basic training. I had a little bit of an argument with a drill sergeant about it. I got it approved. I brought it with me. I read it every single day. If not, you know, there may have been a day that I didn't, which it was just something that kind of connected me to that. You know, I had an amulet with me that I had made when I first became a heathen that I kept, that I had at deployment. I was involved in an open circle when I was in Iraq, which was fine, but, you know, interesting all at the same time. Heathenry was like a big thing for me. I met my wife in Korea because she was a heathen that happened to be teaching English in Korea. You know what I mean? Like, it pervaded my life in one way or another. Occasionally it affected it badly. Like, I had NCOs that were pieces of shit. I had officers that were pieces of shit. I had one officer tell me that Orthodox Christianity should be the fucking, like, normal religion for everyone in the Army. And I was like, how many fucking Greek Orthodox do you think are in this goddamn army? Like 12 of you? So, okay, whatever. And then the base I was on in Germany was shit. It was a super highly conservative evangelical Christian base. And that's where I decided, like, hey, I need to get Ausatru on my my ERB. I need to get it on my dog tags officially. I want this to be an option for everybody. This is something that I believe in, and then, you know, so I don't know. That's a ramble and rant, but there you got some of it. And I want to tackle this brother question. Can I just dive into that?
Well, I'm chomping at the bit on that one. Go ahead.
You know, absolutely. Just jump on it.
Because you know what? The only time I'll let someone do this to me is if they're in the military, but I fucking hate it. I fucking hate it. If you're not my brother, my one brother that I actually have, you're not really my brother. Like, I get it, man. We have a bond. Like, we both went through the military. I'm with you there. But if you're just a random heathen that's out brothering and sistering everyone, fuck you. Like, no. Just stop.
That's
I can't. It drives me fucking crazy. You know, beyond just the brotherhood, like when you get around a group of people and they say, "Oh, we're like one big family and you'll fit right in." I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? How do you know? I could be a complete dick, you know what I mean? Tell me I'm going to fit right in.
Yes, no. Okay, you guys are regular Army or regular Navy. Okay?
Regular Army.
You know, and I was part of a different Army. You know, we saw the crap that went on, and a few times I TDY'd to the regular Army, especially when they sent me to Fort fucking Hood. Okay, but being a Ranger, it was different. It's one thing. That's one of the things McNally and I have in common, besides being gray-haired. But being a Ranger was different than the regular Army. We didn't have the douche waffles and the twat nozzles and all this other crap going on. Yeah, we had our dicks in there. You had your dickhead NCOs, but they didn't last. They were punted. They were sent back to the regular Army to learn how to play nice or just to go away. And, you know, it's a different group. I mean, you go through, now Ranger School is a little bit shorter now, but back then it was 16 weeks. You make it through that 16 weeks of RTB, and then you make it through RASP, and then the fun begins is when you join the actual first, if you get lucky enough to get selected to go to the battalions. Those are brothers. Now, I agree with you know, on this crap of, hey, brothers, we're both Ausatru, we both have hammers. Fuck you. You ain't bled with me. And other than that, there's probably, except for my real brother, there's probably 5 in the entire planet that have earned that title. And where did you get your curtains, Josh?
IKEA.
That was random.
Whatever.
But it's
So I mean, if I can cut in here on that, I think what you're talking about there, and I think something that we could all agree on here. And by the way, I want the audience to take note here that there's some pretty seriously fucking different opinions.
Oh yeah.
Amongst the people on this show right now.
Mm-hmm.
No,
just a couple.
I mean, hell, some of us have tangled it up a little bit on online forums here and there, but there are certain things that we can all agree on, and when you get 4 people like us agreeing on something, you should probably listen to us because we're probably right.
To that.
But no, I wanted to follow up a little with what you're saying. You're giving examples like the Army Rangers, which it's a huge fucking deal when you get into something like that. And the things that you guys go through in your training and the things that you guys go through in the field are a huge fucking deal. And you could almost, at least I would think, and now obviously I'm coming from an experience outside of that, but you could almost liken that to the same things that are the bonds of frith within a family.
Pretty damn close, right? That's probably a damn good explanation of it.
I mean, you're willing to lay your life down for these people. You will back them to against outsiders no matter what. You guys might fight on the inside, but you've always got each other's backs. When you're facing the outer yard. I mean, it's always sounded an awful lot to me like it's similar to frith.
Exactly. That's a good description of it. And the regular infantry, I played with those guys many times. Great group of folks.
I just want to cut in real quick.
As long as you didn't have to count above 4. And, no. But, the grunts I worked with, they're good folks. But they also realize, too, that, it's just a huge boys club. And yeah, you get your little cliques, and you got your brothers and all that, and this crap. But it was totally different. And being heathen, what do we call it? We call it Old Way, or we called it Norse. And the big thing in the '80s, what was it called? Odinism, which today is almost a dirty word, because you got crap like what's that? Elizabeth von Senner, or whatever the crap her name is. Yes, I'll drop her freaking name.
Yeah.
I use her for target.
Odinia? You talking about Odinia?
Oh, fuck those people.
Ooh, that's a bad word to say in the era.
Things like that are why we have a content advisory at the beginning of this episode.
Sorry about that. That was a...
Hey, can I jump in here, Chuck? Because Thorin and both you, I think, in a lot of ways, the Green Berets are the Menabunda of today. It's not frith so much as a really structured class of society that separated itself.
Well, absolutely.
We have these sacred rites that we participate in, and I am not. I was a fucking fobbit. I was a pogue as much as a pogue can pogue, but I have a shit ton of respect for people that actually went and joined the modern day Menabunda, and that actually put their fucking
it's a tough course.
So I agree, Josh. I think, if you look at a lot of the stuff that was written in the One-Eyed God by Kershaw too, and look at the roles of the Menabunda and what she calls the Daemon Warriors, and you apply that to what SF does, how they train other people, how they teach, the younger troops. It really, the role is very, very similar. I've always thought that, so that was a very good point.
Yeah, good use of Kershaw, man, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Now, see, I mean, you kind of went away from the analogy to make it easy for the layman to understand and sort of busted into the big guns there. I was going to be a little bit more simple with that and go towards the whole rites of passage and group membership sort of thing, but now you're spot on with the Menabunda.
And that's, you're absolutely right, though. I mean, the ordeal, that you go through that bonds man and his tribe, it's an organic tribe building that happens when you do something like Ranger School, like the ordeal that you experience, that brings you together and you bond. That's where the brotherhood actually takes place. And at some levels, like I can accept it. You know, when there's people that I've never met, you know, other than online, and they're like, "Hey, bro," you know, and I'm cool with that. Even the "Hey, brother," you know, it's okay. We have something similar that's brought us together, and we have like the same mindset, and we probably would be tribe. We probably would have that connection if we were, you know, closer. That were the organic, you know, building of the tribe could allow to happen. So I'm tolerant of it, but at the same time, yeah, that ordeal has to happen. You have to have that serious, you know, just something that brings you together. And Ranger School was just a perfect analogy right there. SF also, you know.
Definitely. Yeah. Delta 18 Delta Group. I mean, that's the medic version of Special Forces medic. I tried it. Probably about 86, 87. I was one of the older guys in the group. Oh my gosh. And I failed. I bailed at 14 weeks of it. Let me tell you, the beanies, they're badass.
I do a lot of training with Tier Group over in Louisiana, right outside of Fort Polk, and the guy that owns it, John Heath, is a retired Army Green Beret. He's been Ranger, and I mean, just the energy the guy puts off is all inspiring. You know, and to learn from him, I mean, it's completely different. When I talk to him and I train with him, I get that feeling like I'm part of that. What Kershaw's talking about in the One-Eyed God, the Manabunda and learning, and it's amazing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that segues into something that might be a good topic for us. There's some great questions in this chat, but I think it would be good to talk about the transition, because I think what's interesting in concepts of the Manabunda is that when you leave it, when you come back to society,
Yes.
You see this in Irish myths, you see it in Norse culture, you see it in Greek culture, that people were cleansed ritually to return to society, to return to the community, that you were remade as a person after your experiences, that you were dead technically while you were out in the Manabunda, while you were in the war band, whatever group you were in doing that. We need to talk about how, as a heathen society, we can help our transitioning military members give their oath back, have it fulfilled officially, and be cleansed of not necessarily anything bad, but cleansed of like the death that they were under when they were part of those sorts of groups. Like, maybe I'm getting too deep down the rabbit hole with it, but
no, you're really not.
I agree.
I think that we sorry not to interrupt you, Chris. I mean, I think that's something that I've talked about with people before when it comes to the difference between being in the military and getting out of it today versus what it was, say World War II era. We as a culture, I'm talking over culture here, outside of heathenry, but as American culture, used to handle that, and we did it naturally. We did it by throwing parades, and we did it in the way that we honored the returning soldiers, and that's the thing that kind of stopped. And that was sort of one of our ways, at least on a psychological level, of providing a transitionary period for them. They returned from what it was. They were glorified by their society. They went through that period, and then they returned to their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something lacking today. So I think it's an absolutely perfect subject to try to get into how do we serve our returning veterans now that our overculture is no longer serving them in that capacity.
It's difficult. I mean, I struggle with it, till today. Like, if you listen to some of my podcasts, you'll know that I'm very funny about the use of the word warrior, and it's a simplified version of what we're talking about, just for people that, aren't as well read or whatever. I tell them, it's like, unless you're engaged in the definition of the word warrior, you are not a warrior. So when you were in the military and you were serving in that role, you were a warrior. When you come home, you're no longer in the Manabunda, you're no longer a warrior, and it's very, very hard. It's difficult to get that through to people. And myself, it's like I still have that romantic notion. I want to be the warrior. I want to be that guy, and I always, guys know how I am about defending the tribe and my beliefs with that, but I don't put that on myself. I don't allow myself to become that unless I have to. So there's there's a lot of difficulty with people, especially in heathenry. It's a hard pill to swallow because a lot of people come to heathenry because of that the warrior allure that's so prominent out there. And one of the first things that I do when I encounter that is I try to shake it off them. Hey, you're a regular guy now. And you can still be, I try to compromise a little bit and tell them, hey, you warrior class, you're a veteran, you served, you be proud of that, but it's time to live a regular life. I don't know what we could do, technically and ritualistically to make that happen, but it's definitely a goal.
Yeah.
Maybe not, Chuck says.
Different cultures, different generations. It's. I work with the VA a lot. I don't get my medical care there. Well, some of it I do. I get my prescription there because they're cheaper than.
Does anybody get their medical care at the VA?
Blue Cross Blue Shield is doing.
It's just bad. I mean, I tell these people, you want to see socialized medicine? Go to the VA. You'll see it right then and there. It's sometimes with some groups of people and some groups of military and some groups of heathen, it's not an on-off switch. Okay, today you're Army. Tomorrow you're a fry cook or whatever you are. And, it's last time I deployed anywhere was 1993. And that was Bosnia. And so it's been a really long freaking time for me. And there's days that it comes back just as real as it was back then. So maybe I missed something on the conversation on that part there. I'm old. Shit falls out of the head and all. But you can't.
Kind of in the same boat I am, Chuck. I mean, I feel the same way. It's there, especially with, with the training that I do. Not just aside from the physical stuff that I do. With martial arts and tactical stuff and survival. It's a mindset that it'll never go away. I'm never going to stop being capable of assuming that role until I'm just old and decrepit and can't move. If I make it that long. But it's a mindset that I don't think, and I think we do ourselves a disservice if we deny it. You know what I mean? Because as members of our tribe, we still have to take the responsibility of defending the tribe, setting the perimeter, and if need be, flick that switch, go right back to that guy, and fight again. And in this day and age, I don't think anybody's going to argue with me the fact that we lived in a pretty fucked up world, and we can't rely on law enforcement, and and that's the thing to do. Don't get me wrong, but we have to be capable. We have to be, prepared for anything, and it's just. It's part of me that's never going to go away, and I think any man will stand up and say, "Hey, I'm going to defend my tribe." So, Chuck, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
I think it's a role of almost like an occupational role where we got paid. That was our one mission. It was to
go out, kill people, break things.
Yeah.
Basically, I'm reading the chat room. I actually signed into the chat room over here also. And there is a good question in there that we should cover because it says, do you feel that PTSD in veterans is something that the heathen community at large tends to diminish with the focus on strength, war, fight culture? No. Majority of the heathens, well, my kindred, look at my kindred alone, we have, 4 or 5 of us vets, but we have a PhD who's a psychologist who works for the VA. And she really, really, really works hard. And within it, I mean, I've had other folks on the other network. But no. I think being heathen, and this is just my little UPG. I should have loaded up the damn UPG alarm. But
no Foley on this show.
But I think heathens, though, are better at taking care. I mean, just going on a general assumption, heathens are better at taking care of the PTSD of their own than most other subcultures of the Americas.
Agree.
Chuck, I agree with you on that. But that being said, I think some groups do it better, and I think there are a lot of heathens out there, and we sometimes have to disconnect ourselves from I think what are our good little groups within the larger I don't know what fucking word I want to use, but the larger slime maybe if I want to be an asshole that is modern heathenry sometimes, and I think there is a lot of you are a strong warrior, blah blah blah. You should be fine.
Take it off. Take a salt tablet.
Yeah.
And I see that a little bit too.
Yeah. And it's kind of like fuck that shit. Sometimes you need to sit down and say, I need to get my fucking head right. And I think when we do that, we're doing good things. And I think that happens, but I don't think it happens enough.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to is from group to group, from tribe to tribe, or from individual to individual, is how you choose to view the interactions between yourself and the individuals that are close to you, be they tribe or just be they the people that you're close with. And if you start out with that whole, here, take a horse pill of Motrin and drink some water and walk it off, you'll be fine. If that's your way. What's that?
And change your socks.
And change socks. Got to take care of those feet. Yeah, I mean, if that's your response to everything in your interpersonal interactions, you're gonna have a bad time. But I think you tend to see that in groups of heathens that congregate together, there tends to be at least that one guy who's smarter than that. That guy who can sit there and acknowledge that you have an issue and then not talk to you about it unless you want to. That guy that says, hey, yeah, there's this thing, and if you want to talk about it, fine. Until then, here's a beer.
Josh is absolutely right. There are some kindreds. I'm not going to, I should drop them, but, I'll be a little bit more classy than that. There are some kindreds that are more interested in the Viking aspect of it. Don't you think those guys felt what happened in battle? I mean, it's not, PTSD is not something that was invented during, Bush the First or some shit like that?
Yeah. I don't know, Chuck. I think that the mentality, we can't speak for them because we weren't there, but the mentality was so different. Just like, look at PTSD, and this is where I'm going to fucking piss somebody off, I know it. Look at PTSD, how it's escalated over the years. In the Vietnam vets, they called it shell shock, but...
Yeah, that's World War II. Yeah, but I see what you're saying.
It's become such an epidemic. It's escalated. The mentality that, our ancestors had wanting to die in battle and looking forward to that was something of difference. And here's another thing. I think that with the amount of... Josh is shaking his head no.
It's all right.
with the amount of heathens that are starting to come about in the military, I think the reason for that is it's been huge the past couple of years, and I think the reason for that is because it's easier to view these things through heathen goggles, so to speak. When you try to apply what you see in battle, as a Christian, as some other faith, it doesn't work quite as well as it does with our beliefs. So I think as time goes on, mentality and mindset evolves, and I think that's a big part of it. Here's
the thing, and Chris, I respect you,
but
yeah. I totally disagree with the mindset that the heathens wanted death. I totally disagree with that.
Right.
The heathens wanted life because they were life-accepting people. They didn't want to die. Right. But when they joined, when they went to war, they knew they were dead. That's the difference of the mentality.
Right. That's why I said Vikings. I didn't say heathens. I'm not talking about the heathens that stayed back and believe me, we're on the same page, dude. I know a lot of people get the wrong idea of me, but believe me, we're on the same page.
Okay, cool.
But even World War II, it got made a big deal because of that fucking movie of George C. Scott and Patton slapping that soldier. Shit like that happened. It happens today.
Yeah.
I mean, I seen it in the 80s. I seen it in the 90s. I saw Six one time just beat the holy fuck out of an E4 because he could not go on. This was in Herzegovina. And I think I was looking in the chat room here, and Scholar Griffin, he hit it right on the head. We're just becoming aware of it. It's been around since, Jojo the caveman killed, some fucking monkey. And but I think a lot of heathens, I'm not going to say good heathens or bad heathens, whatever, but a lot of heathens we have a different worldview. We have a different mindset. Well, that's why we're not Christian. So we see a family member, and it depends on how you run your kindreds, or how your kindred did. And my kindred, it's just one great big family. But you see a family member hurting, you need to fix it. And that's just the way, I look. That's my worldview. Been there, done that, got a whole bunch of T-shirts. I take off my shirt, it looks like a fucking leather jacket with zippers. Yeah. But, one thing that makes a lot of heathens different than a lot of the other faiths, not all of them, but quite a few of them, is that we, even if they're not your brother, not whatever, we care about each other. Now, outside of my kindred, you're on your own. Inner guards, outer guards. We'll leave it at that. That's a different conversation for a different day. But,
well,
go ahead.
Not really.
I'll tell you that I care about all of our military people.
Exactly.
Because
excuse me.
They might not be a more traditional concept of inner yard, but I do have a relationship to them.
Yeah.
I do have a responsibility.
I
do have those reciprocal relationships that we need to ensure are fostered and strengthened. Just going off what you're saying, I agree with you, Chuck. So
yep, it has to be. It's just, basically you make the rank of 5 or above, and you're trained to do 2 things: lead people, take people, and show them how to kill other people and break things. But also, I don't know if it's the same today, take care of those people.
Well, definitely. And now I wanted to kind of address something as maybe call it a theory, if you will. The question about whether or not heathens were better at dealing with that sort of thing, and not just dealing with.
I'm talking modern heathens, not.
So am I.
Okay.
And we're talking about the not just dealing with the returning person who maybe saw some shit, maybe got into some shit and has PTSD, but also how the individual himself or herself is able to deal with it could be chalked up to a little bit of a worldview issue amongst heathens. Is that heathens do tend to, at least the heathens that get into seriously trying to alter their worldview to a more heathen worldview, start to develop that sort of compartmentalization between inner yard and outer yard. And it's just something that kind of occurred to me off the top of my head, because that's part of what I was thinking and talking about earlier with the difference between the way returning soldiers were treated in World War II versus today, is that there was an effort made to compartmentalize that part of their life.
Yep.
And so this is sort of an extension of that, is being able to compartmentalize inner yard, outer yard, being able to more easily compartmentalize enemy and brother, and thus not feel as much when it comes to their actions against an enemy.
Yeah, there's tons of psychology and
that's what I'm getting out of this. It's
and I'm not qualified to start talking psychology, so
no. There's
something.
When I really started to understand heathenry, and that's an ongoing thing. I'll continue to try to understand it the rest of my life. But as I go, I start to lose a lot of the the hindrances that were impressed on my childhood with Christianity. And one of the things that really helped me with loss, and that's been an issue that I've had in the past, is that I don't feel bad anymore. I'm not sad. I don't miss the people. I don't miss my family that have passed on, or the people that have close to me that have passed on, because I don't feel like they're completely gone. And I feel like that, because of my worldview, that I'll see them again.
Yeah.
And when I first got into heathenry, I had some shitty mentors. I got around a lot of the NS guys, and although I didn't subscribe to their political views, I still had a lot of that influence. But there was one guy that he always told me, he's like, we don't mourn our dead. We don't do that. He's like, you celebrate their life, and it's something that's stuck with me, and it's helped me a great deal. And I don't know how much other heathens really, use that as far as their worldview goes, but it's something that's definitely stuck with me and helped me a lot.
Yeah. It's definitely part of the worldview amongst my folk out in these parts. I mean, when one of ours dies, we throw a fucking party.
Yeah.
Yep.
People get ridiculously drunk. We tell stories about the guy who died, and we kind of usher them in with that. I guess you could call it a ritual of sorts. It's not usually too terribly formal. We kind of usher them into the ranks of our honored dead with that ritual.
Yeah. Oh shit.
So Valhalla is a fucking metaphor for a fucking mass grave on the side of the fucking battlefield.
I wish they would just stop with the Valhalla shit.
Just stop.
You know what, guys? Here's another one of those instances where four people of vastly differing opinions in the heathen world are agreeing. Valhalla is a metaphor for the mass grave of the battlefield. You're not going to Valhalla. Get the fuck over it. Or if you do go to Valhalla, you're probably not going to be very fucking happy about it.
Right.
Even if you want to take it literally, right? How many doors were there? 540, and how many Einherjar come out of each one? That many people have already died, better than us. So it's full. We're not going. Pack it up.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we want to get all Jehovah's Witness about the interpretation.
Right.
Yeah, no matter how you look at it, and here's my thing with it. Quit fucking worrying about what's going to happen when you're dead. Worry about what's going to happen right now, today, tomorrow, this week, while you're still alive. Earn this life, and then be with your ancestors in the next one. But don't worry about it. They're going to be there. There's too much shit going on, here on Midgard, where you live. Everybody's so fucking worried about that goddamn
going on right now.
I think I know we've made the point so many fucking times in the show about stop worrying about where you're going to go when you die, because there's not a single fucking thing you can do to control it other than live a good life.
Yep. That's right.
Yeah.
The beginning is set, the end is set. What you do in between, it's up to you.
Yep.
Pretty much.
Now, I want to touch on the Manabunda question, because I think people misunderstood what we were saying there.
I think so too.
We're equating the Manabunda with special forces, with people that have really, really separated themselves from the regular military. The regular military sort of fits into the professional warriors kind of area, as I understand it. Now, it's not the same, because we don't live in that same fucking society, so don't try making every jackass paper pusher in the fucking army into a goddamn warrior, because he's not a fucking warrior unless he's like a badass with a fucking rifle at the same time as he can do a fucking 4187.
Any other?
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody out there who listened to our episode on Weird got that lesson about how some things are just comparisons and metaphors, and any one of those is going to break down under scrutiny. It's just a method of trying to help people understand things a little bit better than they might have before. When we know they're not going to go out there and read half the library to try to get it, unless they're really, really fucking interested in it. I think we used at least a dozen different metaphors for Weird, and any one of them would break down under scrutiny. And this is no different. This is just a comparison to try to give you a little bit of a window into what we're talking about.
Yep. I also, because I love answering chat questions, which makes me an asshole maybe, but
no, you're making my job really fucking easy tonight, Josh. Thank you.
I saw a couple too that want to hit on.
There's nothing wrong with changing your luck through joining the fucking military. That's what I did. I was a broke-ass motherfucker living in my car in San Diego. I was nothing. I was 24, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Where do I want to be in 10 years? So I joined the military. I did my service. I got out. I went to school. I have 2 motherfucking degrees on the goddamn GI Bill. I have a wife. I have a beautiful fucking house thanks to a VA loan. That is fine. That's all I gotta fucking say about that.
I
Yeah,
honestly don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, what the hell else are you supposed to do with your life but try to improve your luck and give better luck to your children?
Right. Throwing it out there.
Saw a question here. Oh well, missed it. Oh well. Next.
That's all right. Actually, there is
asking-
a question here that I want to get to, and because it kind of relates into another area that I wanted to get into as well, which, we haven't had a whole hell of a lot of conflict between the four of us tonight, and maybe this area will get us there.
We're
We're nicer than people expected us. I think they expected us.
ambush.
There were predictions of doom and fucking gloom with this guest lineup, and I just want to point out to all of you that you can fuck right the hell off. That sometimes it doesn't matter how different your fucking opinion is, you can work together anyway.
Isn't that not what I said when we first contacted? I said,
yes.
hey,
yes,
this is a perfect example, and this is the problem. The problem is actually the fucking internet. Because we get on the internet and all we have is those letters that we type. We can't really express ourselves and show emotion and everything like that. When you get people face to face, even like this, it changes everything.
It really does. But so the question I want to get to, I guess there was a question, and I don't think I've ever seen this in the history of this show. We got a question through the YouTube channel. And the question as it was written was, how do you incorporate spirituality and the veneration of Landvader into your day-to-day, both in and out of the military, especially with the military mindset? Actually, let's go with that, and I'll launch off of that into the subject I wanted to get into.
I have a story, if it's appropriate here, like a short story.
You know what? We've got a content advisor. Everything's appropriate at this point.
Okay, so real quick. So I was in Iraq, right? And everything around me was a fucking cesspit of of shit. Literally, there were porta potties everywhere. There was leaky water. It was disgusting. Really, you don't want to live in a condition like this. People are getting fucking lung diseases from the base that I was on. But every day, I would make an offering to the Landvatir, the whites of that area. I saw shit. I saw animals that I don't think other people saw regularly from doing that. I saw rabbits, which maybe they're everywhere, but I saw like healthy-looking ones. I saw like birds that people were like, I've never seen birds here. What are you talking about? I've seen dogs. I saw all kinds of other shit that people were like, those things are not here. This is a cesspool of like humanity's waste. And I'm like, well, I'm seeing animals, so I don't know. Maybe I'm doing something right. That's my story.
And you're sticking to it. Oh, it's just, my father taught me, decades and decades ago, be respectful of the land. Even if you're tearing it up, be respectful, because there are going to be someone. Even today, when we have our little celebrations here at the house, the kindred gathers at my house, and sometimes it's overflowing. But it's tradition of our kindred ever since we formed it. It's tradition of Keeper Seasons Hall, whom we were part of at one time. The first cuts of everything go to the Landvatir. The first plate goes around. My wife will make it, and me and the kids, actually, even now that they're in their teens now, and now the next generation of kids are doing it, the kids carry it out, and we offer it to the Landvatir. And the only time I really, truly remember offering anything was probably in Bosnia. We actually got a real a cooked meal, not out of a bag or a can, and it was just so good that I saved part of it and put it underneath the tree. But other than that, not really. I don't remember very much. But it's also 30, 40 years ago for me. Unlike some of you young guys, that was like just a couple of years ago.
Right now, I'm in the process of purchasing, a new home and land, and that's something that's been really on my mind a lot, is connecting not just with the Landvatir but the land itself, and building a bond with it. And I have to say that I agree. The daily offerings, doing things in the past has always brought the land whites in a more positive role in the land, and it's it works. I don't know how it works. obviously we're putting food out and they're coming to eat it, but like Josh says, you see things that you don't normally see. In here in Alabama, you don't see ravens, but there's been a couple times where crows have showed up, and I had to take a real close look to see if how big they were, because they there was a little bit of a difference, and it's usually around times that I've made offerings. So,
for my part, I've always found it important to learn about the Vader where I lived. I know when I first got into this area, well, not when I first got here, but after I'd been here for a while, one of the things I did was went and visited the local, God, what do they call that? The Daystar Center or something like that. It's basically the local council for all the local tribes, to talk to them about the spirits on their land, that their tribe's experiences through time. I know it's not going to be the same for me, and I don't try to do Native American ritual or anything like that, because that would just be disingenuous and silly of me. But I do try to understand the spirits that were here long before I or my people were here, and I try to do that anywhere I live. And it led to a lot of studying and paying attention whenever I moved around. But that does kind of segue me into the one topic I wanted to get into, that if anything's going to cause any disagreement here, this will be it, because I know this causes disagreement all over the internet, is we've constantly talked in the show about how there is a difference between an isolated heathen and a solitary heathen. You can't really be a solitary heathen. You can be an isolated heathen. And this definitely gets into the territory of the heathen in the military. And this goes into the concept of, what sort of ritual is even possible or appropriate for somebody who is in the military. We talk about a lot on this show about how the gods are the neighborhood of the tribe when it comes to holding ritual. That's the gods commune with tribes, not with individuals, except for in extreme examples. And so you're wise in sticking with your ancestors and the local Vater, et cetera, and waiting until you can settle down and form tribe or become part of tribe to start talking with the gods. Do you guys have any opinions on that?
This is actually something that I'm about to do an episode of Tier 1 Viking Radio on, because I read a article recently about heathenry has a god problem. You guys might have seen that. I think it was the Real Heathenry site that put it out, and it was a good article, but their delivery sometimes not just rubs me wrong, but it's hard for a lay person to really stomach and process and everything. So one of the things that, and I agree that as an individual, I feel the direct connection to my ancestors. I feel like they are the conduit between the gods and me. I feel like if I had to create an analogy, I'm the guy that works in the mailroom at a Fortune 500 company, and the gods are the CEOs. If I walk up to the top floor and start shaking hands with the CEOs, they're gonna be like, "Who the fuck is this guy? Get back down to the mailroom. We're supposed to be working." So your ancestors are the people, your chain of command in between there, and there's a good military analogy there too. People don't understand. They automatically want to just connect with their patron god, and it just doesn't work like that. I mean, there's no I fucking hate self-gratification, that instant gratification. I hate that shit. It's like people expect it, and no, you have to earn that. You have to build the tribe, and yes, the gods are going to hear the call of the tribe way louder than of the individual. And so I think that as a solitary, isolated heathen, as you put it, there's definitely a benefit of going to the ancestors, going to the land Vatir, and building up towards communing with the gods. And those isolated cases you talk about are usually in the lore have been people of great stature, kings, people who have done great things, and they're the ones that have the direct relation with a god, with Odin, in the lore or something like that. So there's definitely a lot of earning involved. Now, shut up and let somebody else talk about that now.
I don't know why unless Chuck's gonna fucking disagree with us. I'm shockingly completely in agreement with what's been said so far. Yeah. You go to your ancestors first if you're isolated because they care about you. I use the analogy of a mayor. The gods are like the mayor or the alderman of a city. The Landvatir are your neighbors, and the people in your house are your ancestors. You go to the people in your house first if you've got a fucking problem with your sink. You go to your neighbors second because they might have an issue with their plumbing that can help you fix your issue. You then escalate it to the fucking mayor if you need to go that far with the issue. But if you need to go that far, you've got a real fucking problem.
And I think the analogy I've delegate anyway. So
yeah, I think the analogy I've always used is you're driving down the freeway and you get a flat tire and you pull out your cell phone. Do you call Uncle Bob or do you call the President of the United States of America?
Right.
You call Uncle fucking Bob because the president's not going to take your call, doesn't know who you are, and doesn't particularly care about your flat tire.
Right.
Anything to add, Chuck?
Well, I think it's a little bit, I agree on that also, but, it's also on a bigger scope. You've heard us talk about it on episodes on Raven Radio. The gods, they care, like the president cares about you, family, dead family, live family, they're the ones you go to. There's no there's no disagreement. It's I'm not going to go ask a bird colonel for help when an E5 will help me better.
So there you go, everybody. I tried to start a fight.
I could start.
What do you do?
Folkish or universalist?
I was waiting.
No.
Failed. You should have brought that up earlier.
Yeah, sorry. I don't know if we have time for that one.
I think I'm the only folkish guy here. Too.
Dinner here. I got to be at work at 4:30 in the morning.
That's
empty.
That's a stupid fight anyway.
It's fun.
Really
It's fun just going and stir the pot. It's just stir going.
Besides, they're both wrong. It's all about the tribalists.
Yeah, what's funny is like the universalists. I don't get on board with them, but then the folkish. When I tell them I'm folkish, they're like, "What are you, folkish light?" And I'm like, "No, why are you fucking worried about it?" I was like, "Seriously, is it really that big of a deal? How many soul brothers do you see fucking coming out of the hood with their pants hanging off their fucking ass?" Hold on.
Oh, he finally used it.
Coming out of the hood being like, "Hell, some my nigga." They're like fucking, okay, they want to hold stumble with you. Does that happen every day? No. Fucking just take the boots off, chill the fuck out. It's about ancestry. It's being folkish is not a racist thing.
It's about actions. This is the thing. If someone can act like a heathen and do heathen things, then they can heathen with me. If they can't, and if they have this dumbass idea that everything in Europe is all one single fucking culture, then they can just go do what they're gonna go do away from me.
That's the absurdity of it. I like I said, I'm folkish, so I do believe that there is a connection between me, my ancestors, and my gods. So here's the thing, though, right? If somebody does come to me and say they're a dark-complected gentleman or something like that, right? And they like a lot of this folkish heathens will try to put a number on how
my room's dark already. I was going to show him.
I'm like, who am I to sit here and say that you don't have European ancestry? At this day and age, as much as we've evolved and moved all over the world, who am I to say you're not hearing the call of that ancestor that just didn't really affect your melanin all that much? So it's absurd.
For my part, it comes down to it's not about genetics as much as it's about culture. I really honestly don't give two fucks about your genetics. You do. An individual should give a fuck about their own genetics because that leads back to their own ancestors. But that's on the individual's level. It's none of my goddamn business. And as long as you are assimilating the culture of heathenry, that's what's important. As long as you are honoring your ancestors, that is important. As long as you are following our ways,
Right.
that is what is important. You know, I don't know who your ancestors were, which is, just what Chris was just saying. You can't look at a person and tell who their ancestors were.
Right.
Not anymore. I mean,
And you shouldn't even try.
You shouldn't even try.
If someone says to you, I'm into this, I'm willing to accept this worldview, I'm willing to do the things that make me a part of your tribe, you go, hell yeah, strap on the boots, let's do this thing.
no, they got to take off the boots.
Okay, whatever.
Boots are the fucking problem.
We'll just ignore the boot metaphor.
Yeah.
Well, it's the thing of brother. Bros are true. Yeah, we'll bring that one into the mix here. But it happens in the military too.
I hate that word.
Oh, but you get, hey, you Army, you can come. We're bros. We're bros. We saw shit together. No, we didn't. And it's the same thing at the heathen side of it. Hey, you have a hammer. We're the same. No, you are not the same.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I wouldn't accept or expect you to accept me into that certain brotherhood because I never even got outside of the United States, let alone saw combat. So there is a separation there, and I'm not going to assume brotherhood through that.
But also too, on the other hand, though, it is a plan of sorts because you were stupid enough to stand up there, raise your right hand, and just say, "Okay, do what you want with me." How many other people in the country have done that?
I think we have like the beginning of us. If you envision the inner yard as like an interlocking set of circles that get bigger and bigger, the military is a closer like ring of inner yard than civilians that have no idea what that's like.
Certainly.
Well, everybody did basic. I mean, Navy basic's different from Army basic, which is from Marine basic, which is from the fucking vacation the Air Force take. But seriously though, it is not close enough to call brothers like they're talking about in the chat room, maybe third or fourth cousin, but it is closer than you are to your average civilian.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that
so you know what, guys?
Because you wore a green uniform, or today I don't know what color it is today.
I think it's green again.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know Chuck could keep talking for hours.
No, I could too, and I'm hungry. So I gotta go eat.
We've got about 2 minutes left, so I'm gonna have to go ahead and wrap this up. I want to go ahead and start by thanking all three of you for being on here and saying fuck you to all the naysayers who thought that this guest list was going to be a shit show. This is just proof to you, like we said earlier, that sometimes we can't overcome our little bullshit differences and get along for the betterment of teaching people how not to do it wrong.
Right.
So a lot of times we like to give our guests some time to talk about the things that they've got going on in themselves. And since here on this particular episode, we've got two people who are hosts of their own podcast, and then we've got Josh with his Open Halls project.
He's actually an important one.
Yeah, that's the important one. So I'm gonna start with Josh. We talked earlier before we went on air that amongst other things, Josh has a book out, and I mentioned that earlier. Y'all should all go look at it. The art's amazing, and so currently I got a copy of it on my Kindle, but I'm planning on going and getting a physical copy of it because you just can't appreciate the art on the Kindle. So you guys should go look that up. The book is called Old Don. Am I right on that, Josh?
Yep.
And that was
written copies.
Yeah, that was written by Josh Heath, art by Jen Wagner. Go look it up on Amazon or go look on heathentalk.com. You can find it in our book list there. Josh, you got anything you want to talk about real quick before we get off the air?
No, just if you are listening to this and you have not liked the Open Halls Project page on Facebook yet, go do it. I don't have as many likes as Chris's page, and I want as many likes as he does. So, like my page.
People.
I'm going to hook you up, buddy.
All right, bro.
All right, so thanks very much, Josh. Chris, how about you? You got anything going on that you want to talk about before we leave?
Just check out Tier 1 Viking Radio, our Facebook page, facebook.com/Tier 1 Viking Radio. We're on Podbean. I like to talk about all different subjects and not just heathenry. I've talked about survival and all kinds of stuff. If you're interested, check it out. That's about it right now.
All right. And Chuck, man, glad to have you on finally. You're part of the reason that Cards Against Heathenry has a card about Heathen Talk Radio.
Mexico card.
Yeah, no, you're the reason we've got a card about Heathen Talk Radio having another guest cancel. So it's glad to finally have you on. Do you got anything you want to talk about before you get off?
No, I mean, just next episode of Raven Radio will be the 22nd of May. We went just to a monthly format. We can't handle it's too much to do a weekly show right now. Other than that, check out Raven Radio's Facebook page, and while you're at it, go check out the Medic Shack.
All right, so May 22nd is the next episode of Raven Radio then. So, hey, all y'all coming out to Cascadia, Moot, that'll give you something to listen to in the car on the way home.
One quick thing.
What do you got?
Southwest Frith Moot, June 24th through 26th here in the mountains of New Mexico.
Where can people find information about that?
SouthwestFrithMoot.org or Google or look it up on Facebook.
All right, fantastic. So, yeah, again, thank all three of you for being on. It's been a great episode. Everybody go check out the stuff that they had to tell you about. If you haven't liked this video on YouTube, go ahead and do that. Go check out our other social media that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. We've got a Twitter. We've got an Instagram that Mark loves it when you get onto. Of course, we've got our Facebook, HeathenTalkPodcast.com, or Heathen Talk Podcast, and then we've got HeathenTalk.com, our regular website. So with that said, you're doing it wrong. Somebody help me out here.
You're doing it wrong?
What?
No, what's the other one?
Wrong.
Come on.
I don't know.
Don't you? You're always wrong. It's just given. We're wrong.
I don't think we know the call and response here.
You're not the boss of me.
Oh, you're not the boss of me.
Thank you.